Good day, lords and ladies. This is another top 5 video. Today we'll be discussing the top 5 factions we're most likely to see in the future. I will be excluding Demons of Chaos, Chaos Dwarves, and Ogre Kingdoms because we know we're going to be getting these 3 in Total War Warhammer 3. Coming in at number 5 is Arabi. Arabi takes a spot because there's been quite a bit of hype for small factions to be fully fleshed out. I don't think anybody saw the Vampire Coast coming. All of a sudden, small guys like Arabi have a chance, and they have quite a few cool units that they could add to the game. I won't be going too deep into any of the factions here today. A lot of the units for Arabi would be similar to the Sassanid Empire in Rome too, basic infantry and cataphract and such. They would, however, bring the only monstrous cav that we have in the real world, War Elephants. CA has put these in other Total War games, and I'm sure they could manage to put them in Warhammer. The closest thing we have is a War Mammoth, which really isn't so different. We would also see Camel Riders with Giselles, a hard-hitting skirmish cav. Jinn or Genies would be a really cool unit with various uses, depending on how CA wants to incorporate them. Flying Carpets would be a great new flying cavalry option. As far as I know, Arabi's never had an actual army, and they were only ever in War Master, which is similar to Warhammer, but a little different. I think the biggest drawback to Arabi being a playable faction is their starting locations. I'm not super familiar with the lore, but it seems that they'd most likely start in the Arabi Desert, an area that is highly populated with Bretonnia and Tomb King, and several other factions on their borders. There's a large variety of factions in this small part of the map, so it seems unlikely that we'll see Arabi. Coming in 4th place is Nippon. This is pretty much feudal Japan. I think they added Nippon to the Warhammer world in the early or mid-2000s, when there was a big samurai craze going on. They didn't release an army for it, and I don't think there was ever much lore released for them either. I think Warhammer 3 would be a great opportunity for CA to release a bunch of stuff that they already did for Shogun. It would be cool to see the samurai and Oni in a fantasy setting. Plus, I think this would be another good way to get historical players into Warhammer. Even though Shogun 2 is almost a decade old, it still holds up as a great game. I have well over 700 hours of playtime for Shogun 2, which is over a month of my life. And now I have a wife, but I distract myself as always. This would also be a good way to almost get Shogun 3. Until we know what the map looks like for Warhammer 3, it's hard to tell how likely it is that we'll get Nippon. Coming in at number 3 is the Seldon Realms. To be more precise, I want Estelia, the Dogs of War. These guys seemed like a slam dunk not so long ago, but other factions were released instead. CA has said that we won't be getting them in Warhammer 2, but there's a chance we'll get them in Warhammer 3. They have all sorts of units that we're already familiar with, such as crossbows, skirmish cav, heavy cav, all the basic stuff, with a few new things, such as pikemen, a deadly unit in previous Total War games. Halflings, beloved halflings. I want to see them so bad, with their halfling hot pot. They'll also have access to dwarf warriors, ogres, and giants. They have a little bit of everything. What I'm most excited for, however, are the regiments of renown that will come with them. Longdrong's Pirates, dwarf slayers with dual-wielding pistols. Vespero's Vendetta, the human equivalent of Death Runners. Asarnil, the Dragon Lord, a banished high elf on a dragon. Malachi Mekastons? I don't speak dwarf and I don't know how to say that. Malachi's Goblin Hewer, a slayer engineer who created a contraption that throws axes at an alarming rate. The Birdmen of Katrana, a flying infantry with bows. Bronzino's Galloper Guns. Imagine war wagons with cannons. And one of my personal favorites, the Curse Company. All of these and more. If you guys want, I'll do a fleshed out video for the Regiments of Renown. It's pretty extensive. We might not get the Seldon Realms right away, but it seems almost certain that we'll get them at some point. Coming in 2nd place is Cathay. I feel it very likely that we'll get Cathay as a playable faction, possibly even on release. I made a video a few months ago explaining why I think it's possible we'll get them. They just released 3 Kingdoms last year, a massive success for their historical titles. I've done 2 other videos for Cathay that you can check out here if you click the links. Having Cathay would help get the Chinese market into their Total War fantasy games. The 3rd game will likely have a new map with little or no lands from the previous games, just as the Vortex campaign was all new lands after the 1st game. The amount of freedom that CA has had over the Warhammer world is surprising to say the least, as Games Workshop has a history of trying to maintain too much control. And now for an honorable mention, Midland. This is an honorable mention because it's not a full army on its own, it's a sub-faction of the Empire. With the Empire's last overhaul, I thought for sure we would get this. A lot of people were expecting Midland roster, or at least a couple of new units. Boris Todbring is an important character in the lore, and a legendary lord in the campaign map, but without mods, he can't be your faction leader. I thought we might get Valten as a new legendary lord, and maybe Priest of Ulrich as a new hero or lord option. I'll go over the roster some other time if you guys like, but I felt that Midland deserved an honorable mention. Now for the number one most anticipated faction, Kislev. I'm sure this comes as no big surprise. Kislev is a strongly wanted and expected faction. There's no way that we won't see them. They have some great stuff to offer, and with the starting locations, it would make a great challenge. There's some decent mods to hold us over for now, but I'm sure that we'll see these guys on release. I think it very likely we'll get them as a playable faction in Warhammer 2. Norska was released early as a pre-order bonus for Warhammer 2, and could be played in the first game. I think Kislev will similarly be available early to people who pre-order. I did a video a while back explaining what we might get if we see Kislev, and I'll put a link here for you to check out. That's all for today. Is there anything you disagree with? What factions would you like to see? I'm interested to find out. If you like my content, give me a thumbs up, tell a friend, and subscribe. I'm off to work now because YouTube doesn't pay my bills. I see hordes of green, red blood too. I see the doom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful war.